Hey, I'm Chef Scot. I'm with Woof Creek, and today we're going to talk about safely preparing food for your fur babies. I know a lot of people are really intimidated, and I get a lot of questions from our customers and just people generally inquiring. I want to switch to raw, I want to switch to fresh food, but I'm just not sure how safe it is for me and my family. And I'm here to tell you that if you've ever cooked for yourself or your family, you're pretty much already preparing fresh food in the same way that you would for your fur babies. It's pretty simple. I have a few things here. We'll talk about some of the items that I have laid out, but primarily what we're going to do today is show you just how simple, easy it can be to be safe in your kitchen. So a few things I do first to prepare. Number one, like I've always been taught, before I come to the table, wash your hands. And that's the same before you come to the cutting board or anywhere else in your kitchen. When you're about to prepare foods, wash your hands. Another thing I like to do is take off any jewelry I have, because we're working with raw meats. We don't want any of that to get underneath your rings or jewelries or anything like that. One question that I often get is, how long should I wash my hands? Well, in culinary school growing up and stuff, we were always told to sing the happy birthday song. And I think there's a lot of updates on that. So it's about sing happy birthday to yourself. And it's about 20 or 30 seconds, but you really want to do a good job. It's not just going to the sink and real quick, you know. The pre-wash is important. It's those secondary and final washes that are very important, post-handling of the meats. So once your hands are washed, dry them off really well. That's what we do. I always keep these nice little bar towels or kitchen towels. You can pick them up anywhere. And they're great for cleaning up, and they're great for any little side work you might have during the whole process. When we're thinking about raw meats, even if you're doing a cooked meal for your dogs, you're going to start with raw meats. We always want to think about where this meat is coming from, what part of the animal is it coming from, and what pathogens could be attached to that. If you think about that too much, you may never do this. So just know one thing that I have learned. All of the stuff you see here is so much safer than the stuff that comes dried in the bag, because I know where this came from, and I can see it and I know what it is. I know this is beef. If I grabbed a piece of kibble, I might not be sure exactly what that is. What we're going to do first is I'm going to start handling meat. Oh my gosh. You'll notice that I have some gloves here. I'm not putting the gloves on, and that's kind of a personal preference, but I will say this. If you default to using the gloves, just make sure that they don't give you a false sense of security. Meaning, if I have this glove on and then I turn around and open the refrigerator door with that glove on, I may think that I'm protecting everything around me because I'm wearing gloves. Whatever you touch is also on the glove. If you want to pull the gloves off and change the gloves several times, you can do that. I prefer to go with the bare hands. And then actually in the culinary world, as long as if we have a kill step, we're allowed to touch anything with our bare hands. If I was serving you a salad, I would use gloves. If I'm serving you a piece of meat that I'm going to cook, I'll use my bare hands. So just like anything else, I'm just going to go and start preparing stuff. Now, when you make raw food, you want to make sure there's all sorts of different things in there, like the organs and all these things, but I don't want you to get bogged down on that. Today, we're just talking about how to stay safe. And it's really simple. Now, one thing, I don't know if you're watching and if you notice this, one thing that I've already done that I have to be very, very cognizant of is I touch this beef with both my hands, and I've touched my knife. So when I'm done with this, or if I'm moving on, I'm always going to wash my knife and I'm always going to wash my hands. So actually, right now would be a good point to go ahead and give my knife a wash and also wash my hands. Stay clean the whole time. Okay, so we have all of our raw stuff. Very important. There's a lot of different ways to approach feeding fresh. But the sanitation applies to all of it. So when you're feeding fresh, you can go ahead and do like I've done and make your own. I use all the good stuff, make my own. You can buy pre-made. This is wonderful pre-made patties that are easy to find. They come frozen. This is made by Small Batch, great company, we love them. You can also buy pre-ground meats and mix those in with your vegetables and all sorts of stuff. There's lots of great recipes. You can go to Dr. Judy's website and get her pup loaf recipe. Come on, people, if you haven't had the pup loaf, right? One of the ways I segued into raw cooking or raw food for my dogs was I took the pup loaf recipe and didn't cook it. I mixed it all up and fed it to my dogs that way. And they love it. They love every bit of it. No matter what you're doing though, whether you're making your own or you're buying pre-made, you follow the same steps for sanitation. It's that simple. And a few things that you're going to need is an all-purpose cleaner. So when we're done with all this, we're just going to make sure that whatever surface that we've worked on is first cleaned with an all-purpose cleaner. And then after that, wipe it down. And this is going to be all the surfaces around my area here. And then once that's done, sanitize. Step 1, clean. Step 2, sanitize. If you're going in with sanitation first, you're not doing the full process. Sanitizing or antibacterial agents do not clean. They just sanitize. Now this is a special type of sanitizer because I have fur babies around me all the time. I don't want to use harsh chemicals, so I go for the natural stuff. This is a great citrus-based cleaner, and the sanitizer is a salt-based sanitizer. So once I spray this on, follow the directions on any of the packages you get to get the best results and to kill the most bacteria. Once I spray my sanitizer on, I'm going to let that sit for 10 minutes because that's what the package told me. Now, the great thing about the stuff that I use is once that evaporates, the only thing that's left is salt, sodium chloride. And it's killed 99.9% of the bacteria around my area. 10 minutes go by, I come back, I give it a good wipe, and that's it. I'm all cleaned and sanitized. And after that, because I'm wiping things down, I'm doing all this, then I'm going to go and wash my hands once again, clean everything up, and put everything away. It's really simple. One of the most astonishing things that I realized in my research when I was researching the safety of raw food, the safety of cooking your own dog's food, and the thing that I realized was that I grew up around this. We all grew up around this. My mother didn't feed me a lot of raw steaks, but she handled raw chicken before she cooked it in the pan. She handled raw beef before it was thrown on the grill. All of these things were in my life already, and I just needed to access that memory to say, I made it. I made it through and didn't get sick from anything that my mother was teaching, and she's not a culinary professional. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is the simple fact that the leading cause of E. coli, salmonella, and listeria contamination is from fresh vegetables. Things that you already have in your kitchen that do not scare you at all. These fresh vegetables, hopefully you wash them every time you use them, but those are more worrisome than some of the meats that we work with. I'm not saying let your guard down when you're working with raw meats, certainly not. So we go through this with the intention of feeding our dogs, making our dogs thrive instead of just live, and we can do it safely, and it's really no big deal. Now, if you have someone in your family that might be prone or immune compromised or something, go with the gloves, clean everything as much as you can. But once again, you're still just cooking in your kitchen. A lot of people ask me, hey, what about after your dog eats and then comes and licks you in the face? And I'm like, well, after my dog eats, my dog doesn't come and lick me in my face. But what I do is I have some nice little biodegradable, earth-friendly wipes. So once my girls are done eating, we wipe their face down with some of this. And sometimes I put a little coconut oil on it. And they're like, hey, I don't mind if you wipe my face. And the coconut oil actually has some antibacterial qualities as well, and it helps them smell good and all that. And we've trained our girls to allow us to brush their teeth. So every time they eat, we give them a quick little brush, not a 10-minute ordeal, just something that keeps it pleasant for them. And it's the coconut oil and a little baking soda, and they love it. So that really helps, at least helps me feel that I am helping them not spread it. Now, the one thing that we might not consider when we're talking about the cross-contamination of pathogens is when it comes out the other end. When your dogs poop, they have a natural way of passing any pathogens in their bodies through their body. So it's important that, especially if you live in an area where you need to be picking up the poop, or if you're in a yard and the dogs go out in the yard and there's kids or people walking around, just make sure you clean that up and put it away where it goes, dispose of it properly, and you will minimize the spread and the cross-contamination of pathogens. So we've gone over a lot of stuff. We want to make sure that we clean. We want to make sure that we sanitize. We want to make sure that we have clean towels to wipe everything down. And number one, we want to make sure that we're not so intimidated that we don't venture into making our dogs' lives better. It's really can be intimidating, but when you think back, like I was saying, you think back about how your mom or your dad or that grandmother of yours cooked for you all the time. They started with raw stuff, and they did pretty good. If you're watching this video, you made it. You made it through the fresh preparation. What I have in front of me here is a blend that I make for my girls. One of the advantages of cooking raw food or making a raw diet for your dogs is that you get to exercise diversity in the type of foods that they eat. So my girls get every 7 days, because I make enough for about 7 days, every 7 days they switch proteins. And that helps their gut flora, and it helps them not to become bored. So every time I throw something down in front of them, they're very excited. All I need to do is just look for those different proteins in the store. Now, it's hard for me sometimes to find like venison or boar or something like that. So that's why I'll go ahead and buy the pre-made so I can diversify their proteins in their diet, which is so important. Now this has bison, it has some venison, it has pheasant, it has pheasant heads, it has all the yummy stuff that you probably wouldn't make meatballs out of. But when you're preparing this food and grinding it up and mixing it all together, you are essentially making a meatloaf or meatballs. So think about that. You've done that. You've made a meatloaf, you've made meatballs, and it's simple. You see, I'm just going in here with my hands because it's slightly frozen. And that's another tip that is very important. So when I make my girls' food, I freeze it for at least 24 hours. And that helps ensure that if there are any odd pathogens in there, that we will freeze kill them by freezing them for a good 24 hours. And that's also very important if you're serving fresh fish to your dogs or anything like that. You want to make sure that the fresh fish is frozen for at least 48 hours because fish can have worms and other pathogens you might not think about. And sometimes when I feed my girls salmon, I'll even sear the outside of it because a lot of times it's the outside of fresh fish that'll have certain pathogens on it. So I'm just breaking this up with my hands, and you might be thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to touch that with my hands. It's no big deal. You can do it with a spoon, a knife, or whatever it is to get it into the bowl and mix it all up. And at this point, because I'm going to start grabbing some of the things that I like to put on my dog's food, little inclusions, I'll wash my hands before I do that because I don't want to contaminate my little scoop. I don't want to contaminate my tins, so I'm going to wash my hands real quick. Okay, I crumbled up the stuff. I washed my hands. I'm going to dry my hands off really well, saying happy birthday to myself. Now, I did mention that these are slightly frozen, and that's because I pull them out of the freezer a day ahead and let them come to room temp. Even if they're coming out of the refrigerator ice cold, we really don't want our babies to consume that ice cold food. We want to get the digestive juices flowing as soon as it goes in their mouth, and that really helps kill any of the pathogens and helps them deal with any pathogens that could be harmful to us, but won't be harmful to them because they have the stomach acid to deal with it. That's another story. The hot water or hot broth. You can use your favorite broth for this, or you can just leave the food on the counter for about 30 minutes and let it warm up. or you can warm it up slightly in the microwave if you want to. But I use hot broth or hot water, and also hydrates their food a little bit. And I feel good that they're getting a little extra moisture, especially if it's good chicken broth or beef broth. So I just pour that right over. And this is just a step that I add to help warm their food up a little bit. You can come up with your own way to do it. Now, once I've done that, I like to add a few inclusions into our food here. I like my girls to stay safe from flea and tick, so I put a little bit of the Woof Creek flea and tick powder on there. It smells really good. It smells like a pizza topping because it has garlic in it and apple cider vinegar powder. It smells so good. Gut and digestion support, we'll add that in there. And this smells really good too because it has noni fruit and chaga mushrooms in it. So it's got a good umami and it's really good. The noni has kind of a blue cheese aroma. And then because my girls get a little excited every once in a while, I'm going to add some of the stress relief in here, the stress support powder. And this one smells like chamomile and liver. I don't think you want a candle with chamomile and liver scent, but you know, I don't know what you're into. And then I like to add, one of my favorite ingredients is just straight mushroom. This is a lion's mane mushroom. It's great for their cognitive health. And all of these things that we're adding also help with the mission that we're trying to accomplish today. Is it helps their gut. It helps them to have a very symbiotic gut flora, and that helps take care of any pathogens that they might be consuming, and any pathogens that are taken care of aren't being passed along to you. Now, I know we talked about a lot. We went over a lot of stuff, and I said pathogen, and I didn't say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say germs, and I'm going to say bacteria. These are all scary things, and they really freak us out, but they're around us all the time. And we all do pretty well. We just have to remember, relax when you do this. Think about what you're doing. You're preparing great food for your babies. And not only are you doing that, you're doing it with love. And that means a lot. And that'll transfer to them in a way that you cannot quantify. Just follow the simple steps. Relax, breathe a little, clean, spray, do it all. It's simple, it's easy. Just work clean. Now I'm going to feed the girls because they're going crazy. Free. Once they're done with this, I'm just gonna rinse these bowls out. And if you have a dishwasher, just put them in the dishwasher, sanitize them out, make sure all the meat chunks are out. And then I'm gonna wipe their faces. And then we're gonna have a great relaxed time for about an hour after they eat. And then we're gonna play like crazy. It feels so good to do this. I'm Chef Scot, thanks.